Hey, so I was cut off there. Hopefully I can splice these videos together. I'm not very good at this, but I just wanted to pick up where I left off. It's just this practice problem and a couple other things. So I believe I was right in the middle of this question. So firm XYZ is selling at 22 a share. The last dividend price was 80 cents. Using the Gordon growth model, if the market requires a return of 11%, what is the expected dividend growth rate? So as I was saying, it's the same formula. We just have to solve for the growth rate now instead of P0, which is a little bit more difficult. So the current price is 22. We can plug that in. And then the last dividend paid was 80 cents. But we need to find D1 again, as I mentioned earlier. But we don't know the growth rate. And then also the required rate of return is 11. And again, we don't know the growth rate. So that's what makes this one a little more difficult. But obviously just a little bit of algebra. We can multiply that over. And this 0.11 times 22 is 2.42. Minus 22G. So obviously we want to add the negative 22 to the other side and subtract the 0.8 from the other side. So 2.42 minus 0.8. It's 1.62. And then 22, obviously, plus 0.08 is, or I'm sorry, 0.8 is 22.8 G. And then finally, 1.62 divided by 22.8 is 7.1, roughly 7.105%. So that's how you solve that one. And then lastly, last two things I want to talk about are the price-earnings ratio. So this is a very common thing that investors look at. If you go to Yahoo Finance or something like that, this is like on the front page of each stock. So obviously it's just price to earnings. I'm not going to go over a practice problem. It's just obviously a simple calculation. But the importance of it is obviously it's a ratio of the price of the current stock to how much that firm is earnings, or it's actually earnings per share. So essentially it's telling you what price you have to pay to buy the stock per unit of earnings that you're getting back. So all else equal, you want as an investor, you want a low price to earnings. That would be like a value buy. But like under the efficient market hypothesis, one would argue that a high price to earnings just means that higher earnings are expected in the future. So if you think about like Tesla, I haven't checked it recently, but definitely like a couple of years back and probably even today, their price to earnings is very high. And that's because the price has been driven up because people expect them to have very, very high earnings in the future. So that'd be an example of that. Or simply it could be overvalued. If some people believe the market's not efficient, it could just be that stock is overvalued per unit of their earnings. And lastly, stock market indices they track the aggregate stock market. So if you see it in the news, the stock market's up today, stocks are doing bad today, what they're talking about are indices. So two common ones are the Dow Jones and S&P 500. Obviously, there's many more than that, but those are the two most prominent, and those track like the large portion of the United States stock market. So the Dow Jones is the 30 largest firms by market cap, or of course market cap is just the current market price times the total amount of shares. And the S&P 500 is that same thing, except it's the 500 largest firms. So those 500 largest cover, I don't know the exact amount, but I'm sure it's over 90% of the total like market valuation of the entire stock market. So that's all I had today. Again, I will send out a reminder. So just plan on a quiz over chapters 12 and 13. Then I will conclude next week sometime with Chapter 14, the mortgage markets, and then our final will be over Chapters 1 to 14, and it'll be cumulative, and it'll be very similar to the midterm. And I'll make it available the last week, probably finals week, maybe even that weekend before, if anybody wants to get it done early, because I know you have other finals. So if anybody has questions, please let me know. If not, good luck on your finals and try to enjoy your Thanksgiving.